are you doing? It's me, Jean, and it is Monday, and we're talking about slow processing this week. And it's not a reading skill, but it does affect reading skills at that, okay? So have you ever been in a city you've not been there before, and you're wanting to get to a particular place, and so you find a very nice person, a woman or a man, ask them, please, can you tell me how to get to the museum or wherever you're going? So they began to, sure, no problem. And they say, go down, take a left on King Street, go 3 miles, go over the bridge, take a right on Gulf Road, and then go into that to the shopping center, and then you're going to make a right, and by then you're like, oh, okay, and you thank them for that. It's very kind for them to have given you directions, but are you still so confused? Like, oh my goodness, because you're trying to visualize this, but it's a little bit difficult because you haven't been there, but there's so much information that just came at you so quickly. The only thing you can remember is to turn left on King Street. After that, who knows, right? Hi, I'm Jean Harville, founder of, I'm a reading strategy coach. I'm founder of Raising Kids Who Love to Read. And this is a Facebook community for Christian moms who are looking for those strategies, those effective reading strategies to turn their struggling readers into confident readers. And right now I am live on my Facebook business page helping kids with reading, and I go live every day Monday through Friday about the middle of the day because that just works for my schedule, and I know you all can watch these later. And so I talk about some different tips and strategies on that kind of help with all those underlying skills to reading comprehension, because the main goal is to have strong reading comprehension. And so, but there's lots of little pieces that go into that. So that's kind of what I've been talking about on these lives. So I want to start by telling you a story, okay? She intently listened. Her eyes were fixed. They're like scrunching her eyebrows, like she was forcing her brain to completely be focused on the lecture. And as hard as she tried, she, couldn't remember the words long enough to write down her notes. Has that ever happened to you? You're in a lecture and somebody's talking so quickly and you can't get all the notes down. You kind of get started and then you kind of forget, right? So, she was trying to keep up, but her writing was so scribbly and illegible that, she couldn't even read it later. But there was something about her that intrigued me. She never gave up. At the end of class, she would slip her assignments into her backpack because we had an agreement that she could take her work home and finish it at home. Now, her assignments were always done, and they were done really, really well. In fact, she was the top of the class when given that extra time to get her assignments completed. Her work ethics were amazing, and she asked for time to complete projects. She took it upon herself, knowing that she needed that extra time to process and understand the information, and in order to to put it into action, into the project or into the paper or even the test that was coming up, she just needed that extra time. She knew that. She was advocating for herself, and I'm really proud of her, and her work was top notch. She was slow at processing information, processing language. So slow processing speed means that a child, it could be an adult, anyone, has trouble keeping the pace of classroom learning. So it takes an excessive amount of time to complete their homework. Completing their classwork by the end of class is almost impossible. Tests are left undone because time runs out, and they can't get finished with everything. Have you ever sat in a standardized test, either back in school or even now if you're doing licensure and you're taking a test, an exam, and everyone, is working away and you're struggling, you're working, you're rereading and reading those, maybe passages or the questions and trying to get a grasp on those. And it's just that your processing is very slow. And then people start getting up and they start leaving the room because they're done. And you're like, oh. And somebody else gets up and they're done. Like, how in the world do they do that? I don't understand. How, okay, you focus yourself. Okay, Jean, come on, let's get this together. Okay, focus. And someone else gets up and walks out. and it gets you more agitated, and it feels like my brain goes even slower when that happens, because I get more like just frustrated with myself that why can't I read this and get through everything, you know? My scores turn out fine, but I'm like one of the last people in the room. I don't know how if that has ever happened to you. And just imagine that with our students or our kids, is that when, you know, they're slower in getting an assignment done, and their classmates are finished and they're leaving and going outside or whatever, you know, whatever the next function is. So, you know, the slow processing speed affects the child's ability to handle that verbal information, like reading, writing, decision making, following directions. Those are all difficult to complete in a timeline. Now, if you give a long, you know, period of time, it is fine. And that many kids with slow processing speed are actually very smart, and yet they can't reach their academic potential because the material just kind of flies at them so quickly. But if they're given that time to take in the information and to process it, man, they're some of the smartest people. And I can tell you right now, my son is a slow processor, but yet he has a 4.4, I think it was 4.3 average in high school, and was valedictorian, finished first in his class. Bright as you know, just really super bright. No common sense, but that's another video. But super bright, right? But the processing, I can just see when he's giving information or directions, I can just see it slowly spinning in his head, you know, and then finally he eventually gets it done, you know, but it takes time for him to do that. But he is brilliant. He's like brilliant beyond, oh, he's just, so one of my friends called him scary smart, but really smart. But the processing speed is definitely an issue there. So what slow processing speed is not? What is it not? Okay, so one might argue that the lack of executive functioning skills is the problem. All right, so we'll talk about that in just a second. What are executive functioning skills? The slow processing speed isn't a problem with the executive function. It causes problems with executive function. So to better understand, let's talk about what executive functioning is, okay? These are the areas, these are the set of 3 processes that all have to do with managing oneself and one's resources to achieve a goal. All right, flexible thinking, working memory, and self-control. So flexible thinking, that's what it lets the kids gears. Let me start over. It lets kids shift gears and change how they're thinking. It allows for analyzing and understanding different points of view. So a flexible thinking is you take in new information, and so you change your point of view because you have new pieces of information. So you need to change that. You have flexibility in being able to understand something new. All right, working memory, the ability to hold on to that new information and keep it at the ready so it can be used. This is working memory. This is not that information that's been put into your short-term memory. Well, it could be your short-term memory, but it's not solid into your overall memory. So this is being able to use that working memory and being able to hold that information. Sometimes it just goes away like this because you haven't had a chance to process it, right? So self-control allows the kids to make decisions based on the information without being emotionally involved. Self-control allows them to stay focused until the task is completed. So those 3 executive functioning skills, flexible thinking, working memory, and self-control, are affected by slow processing speed. And basically what slow processing speed determines how fast one can use their executive functioning skills. It's not the actual skills themselves, but it's how fast that those skills can be used. That's it. That's what slow processing speed is. So the executive skills are fine. They work fine. They just can't be used quickly. So here's a practical example. So kids need to use executive skills to immediately respond with reflection. But kids with slow processing speed often respond without even thinking about the problem. And oftentimes they end up responding in an impulsive way. And it's not very well thought out. So they don't lack the skills to respond reflectively. They lack the speed to use those skills effectively. Okay? So that I was really, when I was researching this, and because I think that I have slow processing speed sometimes, and sometimes I'm not sure if it's just because like you're tired or you're so distracted as a mom. You're thinking about so many different things that you miss information. So I was trying to figure out, is that the issue, or do I actually have slow processing speed? I wasn't quite sure, so I was looking it up, and I was really interested because I could reflect back to some of my students, and I thought, wow, they were so slow to come up with the answers. Was it a learning disability? Or was it actually slow processing speed? So trying to ferret out, what the issue is. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about like the symptoms of slow processing speed. And then also what are the causes of slow processing speed. We're going to get into the brain and figure out what is going on in the brain as well. Okay? So if you want more information on more fun ways to increase your kids' comprehension skills, yes, you can connect with us in Raising Kids Who Love to Read Facebook community, and I'll put the link up above, or you can actually just search it on Facebook, and you can join us there. And this is for Christian moms who are searching for those strategies to help their kids become confident readers. And there's also some free resources in there. One is on sight words, different activities you can do to help your kids, especially over the summer, have fun with learning sight words, but it's a fun way. It's not like, oh, I have to learn sight words. So it's a fun way, okay? So that's a strategy that's in there. And there's also one on turning nonfiction or helping kids to love nonfiction reading. When that switch is on, like about the third grade, you start switching, and definitely by the fourth grade, you switched into nonfiction reading. And a lot of kids start falling apart at that point because it's so different than fiction reading. It's very, very different, and you attack that nonfiction reading in a very different way. So there's a free resource about that in there in the files as well. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Y'all have a really, really great day. Bye.